You ready? Right, okay. So I'll just pretend like we haven't been talking for 10 minutes about meaningless shit, you know? Fun meaningless shit, but you know what I'm saying.
I get it.
Okay, Aaron, so welcome and thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast. How are you doing over there?
Not trouble at all. Yeah, good. Bit early. But it's all right. Can you see how red my eyes are?
Yeah. I just assumed that's what people in New Zealand now look like, but it's great.
Yeah. No, the referendum on legalizing hasn't happened yet. So.
Oh, damn. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's not where red eyes are coming.
It's just sheer tiredness. I apologize.
Yeah.
So So I didn't know that you were well, like, you know, a comedian like that. That was your job type thing. So I'm even more
I call it supplemental. Obviously, it's not really happening at the moment. So a lot of it also would involve like putting gigs on and promotion, doing lineups, things like that. I sort of step in and out of it every now and then, depending on what's going on, and it can be a little bit seasonal. In the city I am, we have a large student population; they come and go. So sometimes it can be a little while before I put a show on, and it's about getting to the time where I normally start getting a bit more organised.
What you do? I'm intrigued. I have no idea this world.
It ranges, as I say. I'll put on shows myself, or I'll take part in other people's shows. The most recent thing I was involved in is the Raw Comedy Quest. So that's a comedy competition that's New Zealand wide. It's been going for don't know how many years, long time, and there's never really been much because we're in the bottom half of the South Island, so basically where none of the people are and lots of the farms are. We're like way down south, and there's never been any heats south of Christchurch before, and a couple of awesome local promoters decided they'd make it happen. So there was some qualifying rounds in Wanaka and Queenstown, and we had 2 qualifying, and then so we had 3 acts from each one go through, and then we had a sort of semi-final here, and they were supposed to all 3 of those areas were going to come together and have a massive head-to-head final, but of course that's not happening at the moment. It was supposed to be maybe like in the last week, I think. So we've got all the competitors; they've all got through, but we haven't got to do much with them yet. But one night I was a judge, another night I emceed. That's one of the things I do quite often. I quite like to do that. So hosting the night, comparing is what the term still widely used in the UK. Here they say MC generally. Yeah, you know, get the ball rolling, make sure everyone's on board. Keep the acts coming at a decent pace. Make sure everyone's happy, right. That kind of thing.
So it's just kind of like a comedic fluffer.
yeah, basically. It's really interesting though, because there's quite a big difference between the way people MC in the UK and how they do it here. You've seen something like Live at the Apollo, and you've got like someone massive like Michael McIntyre presenting it, and they come on between every act and do quite a decent chunk of material. So I was doing that, and I thought it was all going well. But it turns out over here they don't like that. They're like, no, get the acts on stage like now. Piss off. I'm like, all right, if you're gonna pay me for saying less, I suppose I shouldn't complain. But
do you have a like particular? Because I kind of want to ask you about this anyway. But like, what do you have like a particular style that you kind of like to use?
Yeah, that get asked that a lot. I've kind of had to kind of come up with my own kind of terminology for it. What I do, I call it thought exploration. So generally, I don't know what I'm going to say in terms of specifics.
Oh God, I'm getting anxiety just hearing you say that.
Yeah, I'm unusual. If any comedians around the world watch this, they'll be like, "Who the fuck is this guy? What is he talking about?" But yeah, I don't spend lots and lots of time writing the same joke in different ways and then telling that same joke hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times to get it all the timing right. My approach is a little bit more natural. I kind of have the philosophy that if it's entertaining me and I'm enjoying it, then hopefully that's going to spread. A lot of what I do really is dependent on getting everyone on side with me and having them understand me. So a lot of what I say on a stage, if you read it in a book, probably wouldn't be funny, or 99% of other people got up on a stage and tried and said exactly what I said again. It wouldn't necessarily make people laugh. It's kind of part of a whole, things like persona and stage presence are really important. But I do bits of everything. I've done a couple of songs. Even I've done stuff that you'd call observational. Not really a one-liners kind of person, because that's very much the type that you write. And, those guys. I have mad respect for people who do one-liners, because that's hard. They come up with a lot of material. I guess I'd be more of a storyteller if you want to get conventional about it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously there are various styles. I think yours is a lot rarer, I suppose, and there is like safety in that structure of mapping out all your jokes. But I think Ross Noble's kind of quite similar in that sense. He doesn't write too much down. He just comes from some sort of continuum in the ether that I'm not aware of. But as you say, you create like an imagined space, don't you? Well, it's kind of like if you're not there, you don't get it. And it's kind of
I suppose like Ross Noble's one that I'm particularly fond of, and the way he performs is kind of the way that I hope that I come across, where I'll have almost like a few bullet points. There might have been mad ideas that I've had recently, or really strange juxtapositions or things that have happened in my life, and that will be what I'll go up on stage with, maybe 3 or 4 points. Chances are I don't even do those. I might do the first one, and then it will take me off on some tangent, and it will remind me of something else, or someone will react in a specific way, and I'll go to them and engage with them and find out why or how they enjoyed that so much, and then that will probably lead me to something else that I wasn't expecting. I kind of I initially started out writing a lot, but I was finding that I just wasn't doing it, because I'd get really excited about these little ideas that pop into my
tangents.
Head, and tangents, right? It just would feel wrong to not go down those tangents and see what would happen. It's never really led me wrong so far. I've never died, so that's good. I've had rough crowds, but I've never properly seppuku on stage. So that's good.
Well, you like mentioned, obviously, I've known you for years, but no one here listening will. So, like we've like talked about, like, obviously like certain people are naturally quite introverted and quite into themselves, I think. And you are, by your own admission, quite an introverted guy. So, how is that something that you get around on stage? Because that's, I mean, I'm a singer, but that's a different thing, because you can kind of hide behind the music. Whereas you're doing something like that, it's much more intimate. I'm talking to you right now, type thing. So.
Well, I think you'd maybe that would be easy to imagine is true, but I'm not sure it is.
Okay.
Because what you're saying is you hide behind the music, but the music's more than that. You also the performance is the persona, right? And you're almost stepping into that. And you're becoming a metal god or whatever, and I'm becoming some guy who just no, you don't. I mean, look, you've got it all sorted. I miss mine. I miss it so much, but it's long gone. See, there's a tangent for you. That is a tangent I often go down, actually. Yeah, so I've never had too much trouble. And people do the whole "you get nervous" thing, and I can honestly really say I've only ever got nervous maybe once or twice, and that will be if for one reason or another I don't feel like I've gotten in the right headspace, like I'm fully comfortable, like I'm going to be able to flow and riff. And when I don't feel like I'm going to do that, then I start to panic because that's what I do. So I really need to check that quickly. Otherwise, that's going to end up being a less good show. And yeah, part of what I do it for myself, but I'm also getting up there to entertain people, and I don't want to waste their time,
Yeah, no, I get it. I experienced the same terror, but it's interesting. Like, like anyone that like will be friends with me and will speak to me like before a gig, I will pee like 5 times in the space of like 10 minutes because I'm like so nervous. But then like as soon as like that first note is struck, it's like I'm stepping into someone else's shoes. And I'm like an object almost. And then when this song finishes, and me again, it's the only way I can describe it. So it kind of like it is like kind of protects you.
Yeah, mine's a little bit more expansive. Mine's more when I get to a venue. I want to already be in gear by the time I arrive. So I'll be just chatting to random people at the bar. Particularly, there's a lot of the time if I'm hosting, if it's one of my own shows I've organised, I like to get there a little bit early and sort of work my way around a little bit. Ask if people know about the comedy, whether they come for it or not, whether they're going to stick around, that kind of thing. So it helps warm me up a little bit. And I've always liked engaging with people. It's just I would also instinctually rather not be going out at all. So it's a weird kind of mix. I'm an extroverted introvert, perhaps.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do tend to think of it as like 2 separate camps, and you have to pick one. But yeah, I think like the reality of the situation is we're depending on how comfortable we are in that situation, we flip constantly between the two.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
definitely. I'd agree with that.
Right, I suppose it's not all about me. I do have questions as well. Craig is asking, is comedy something that?
Hello, Craig.
Craig. Well, I don't know. There are many Craigs, but he's an amazing drummer actually. I'm not. He's not Welsh Craig though. If you're thinking Welsh Craig, there are many Craigs.
There are many Craigs. At least it's not a crag.
No, exactly.
Not an American crag.
And they're all awesome Craigs, equally relevant and sensual.
Hello, all Craigs of the world.
Yeah, we love you equally. Well,
I was going to say that.
Whichever Craig is asking, is comedy something like that you can just like step into? Can anyone do it, or is it like something that's within you?
Little bit of both. I think it's definitely something that you can learn. It like anything, a skill, be it woodworking or anything. If you do it enough, you'll get better at it. And if you are open to listening, particularly to other acts, but also your audience, and listen to what they're enjoying and what they're not enjoying. And try and give them more of what you're getting positive results from. And as long as you keep doing that, you'll continue to grow. Having said that, certain people will have a head start. on that. They'll naturally be further along, whether it's from their own development or their own personality, or they've got some sort of inner ability to be funny. I mean, everyone knows people who are naturally funnier than others. Those people aren't necessarily going to be good on stage. I've experienced that many times. We'll be running an open mic night, and generally you'll throw the floor open a little bit. It's a good way of finding new performers, and someone will give it a go, and they'll be with all their mates, and all their mates will be like, he's the funniest guy in the world, and they'll get up on the stage and they'll just not have a clue what to say, dry up completely, end up talking about something that isn't funny at all, probably very in jokey,
Yeah.
and just, the vast majority of people in the room don't get it. So just because you're funny conversationally or whatever doesn't mean that will translate either. I was very lucky. It was a total accident, really. When I decided I wanted to try it out. I mean, I'm slightly going off on a tangent here. You maybe were going to ask me
what
about
you
this,
do, man. It's your style. It's not a mistake.
What I do. So the first gig I ever did, I was actually in Australia, and I was particularly into watching comedy at the time, and I had the idea that I really wanted to try it out. So I looked online and found out there was a open mic comedy night in this pub in Brisbane, literally the night before I left the country, before I flew back. That was it. So I went down there, managed to get myself on the lineup, and did my first show. Flew back to the UK, and I thought, right, well, that didn't go badly. Actually, that went okay. Let's see what how I can try and develop myself a little bit. And I found up in Manchester there was a stand-up comedy course running, and I applied to get on that, but it was full. But the people who are running that also do improvised comedy classes. A fantastic group up in Manchester called Comedy Sports. Big shout out to Comedy Sports. So they offered me a spot on that. And I went along, and that was it. Improvised comedy for me was invaluable. I've later gone and done some stand-up comedy focused courses, and they've never helped me anywhere near as much. If anyone's thinking about anything in terms of getting better at or getting into comedy, or getting better at performance, getting more comfortable speaking with people, anything, or even if you're just looking for something interesting to do, look up Comedy Sports. It's with a Z. They're up in Manchester. They run some fantastic courses, and it makes a big difference. Like, they focus very heavily on just trusting yourself to say things. You're not trying to be funny in the early days. You're just trying to make sure that you keep the flow going. And then you build on that later and learn some more specific comedy related skills. And that, to me, was far more useful. There's going to be other people out there who very much like writing and crafting, and those people are going to want a stand-up comedy course probably. But I would also highly recommend this. Having improv, if you like, as something to fall back on, is going to help any performer, I think, or public speaker even. That was the turning point for me, really. It's kind of like when I first discovered metal. It's like, this is me. This is how people understand me.
There's nothing else. There's nothing else of value in the world. This is all I need. Yeah.
So I've realised I've not muted my phone.
I'm still there.
All these pings are going off in the background there. But yeah, they spoke my language, I guess, and really helped me on that front. So I think that's a part of it. A lot of people do comedy because they think they want to be the trailblazer. They want to be the first to go and do this one particular style, but be particularly confronting about a particular subject. But for me, the community side of it is really important. And finding that other people do speak your language is particularly helpful, or has been for me anyway. So
No, that's
thinking about it, give it a go.
Inspiring story. I've been thinking about it for years, if I'm being totally honest. I always flirt with the idea. Like I've been to some of the like gong nights in town, in the comedy store, and they are brutal.
They are. That's one thing. I'm glad you brought that up. For first timers, I mean, even if you're in your first year, I would say stay away from those because they are brutal. And if you've not got the right constitution, they will crush your will to get better.
I went there, and like within 10 minutes, they made me one of the judges, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Let's do that. And I felt like, you know, I was in charge of some like sort of like death cramps, like to be a little bit like melodramatic, but in terms of like watching their whole all their dreams and hopes just crumble in front of my eyes, I then feel the pressure from like 100 people, like put it up. It was like a horrible part of myself was just like coming out, you know. I could literally see like they built themselves up, you know, for months probably, you know, working this amazing routine out. It may have been genuinely hilarious, but then they got to that stage, and obviously like the pressure of it just came out wrong. The timing was all off, and it was just deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you can go there with you know, a couple of minutes of really solid material, and if you start slowly, you're out. And you know what? Some people's style is starting slowly, and that's what I mean. Like when you want to do comedy, just listen to yourself as well. It's not just about making people laugh. You've got to be comfortable as well. And no matter what the crowd thinks, I'm not a performing monkey. You know, I'm there with them. I'm there for them to a degree. But you know, if they shout jump, I'm not going to say how high. That's but those sort of formats do create that kind of environment. I've known some people who've done very well on gong shows. Not many who have done that early in their career, but those people have had very particular mindsets. You know, when they get knocked back, they are like, I want to go back and prove them wrong. That's their mindset. So those people will do well in those kinds of environments.
Thrive in that situation.
But just about everyone else will end up with some form of PTSD. I've never done one, and I never will. And I won't host one either, just because of that. I don't want to be running around the green room afterwards looking for people and saying, look, don't lose hope, right? We need you to come back. Because
that is what I saw, the loss of hope.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be a part of that. It's sad. But I mean, crowds love it. It's up in there, like with roast shows. Really, it's very much the same mentality.
A roast show? What's that?
You know, like they have they do them about American celebrities a lot of the time, where they have someone like William Shatner. I believe there's a Donald Trump one. Ugh, I hate saying that. Online somewhere, and they'll get a load of comedians and celebrities, and they come up and do sort of like a speech about them, and they just rip them to pieces. And the whole thing is a group of comedians mocking the crap out of this one target. So it'll be like the roast of William Shatner or whatever. And that format exists as well. I was in a roast battle. I don't want to do that again, where two comedians go head to head and try and rip each other to pieces.
Well, one of my later questions is actually what like your worst, like most like traumatic moment is. So we'll get to that.
We can come back to that.
What do you think is like the actual role of comedy? I know it may sound a bit simplistic, but I think there's a few ways that you could approach it. I'm just curious what your thoughts.
Yeah. No, I mean, this sort of ties back to my whole thought exploration thing. When I get asked questions like that, I'm way down the rabbit hole. You know, I'm deep right now. It varies. On the surface, I think performers are obviously there to entertain, and they're there to improve people's lives and make them leave feeling happier than when they came in. Like they've had a good laugh, like they've had a really good time, and they've been entertained. I think that for me, entertainment is above laughter. That for me personally, maybe that's why I don't have a comedy special. I'm not on Netflix or anything, but that's me. I don't care. Netflix, call me. I mean, sorry. My comedy sports people, if they see this, they'll kill me for doing that, because that is not what a phone looks like. When you mime a phone, you hold it properly. Sorry, comedy sports.
I have no links to Netflix. I apologize. I'm sorry if I misled you in some way. But,
yeah. What am I doing here?
I mean, no, I agree completely, but I do think there's like another part, like another side to comedy that's quite like affirmative. And, you know, like I'm quite like a cynical soul, I suppose, and like comedians like Bill Hicks, like when I first heard them, like they connected to me on a quite deep level. So like there was that almost like philosophical, you know, kind of like Bill Burr, you know, the ones that are quite cynical, who can like see through the problems in our society and things like that, which like connects you in a genuine deep way. That's not just about laughs. You know what I think?
Totally. That's a big part. I think the best way I can really explain the way I feel about that is the example of the Donald. When he was on the campaign trail, comedians were like, "No way, this is like Christmas," and you'd just have to literally just say the latest thing that he said, and you get an entire room full of people wetting themselves. It was better than George W. Bush, you know, and that guy said a lot of stupid shit. And it was genuinely like Christmas. And then it started to get a bit real. And then he got in, and he's thinking, oh well, you know, he's still doing stupid shit. We can still go down this line. And then he started to get scary. And I've noticed a big step back, that comedians are far less willing to talk about him now. And for me, there's an interesting line when you talk about something genuinely scary, or a genuine world issue in a funny way. Are you then sort of making that seem less in people's eyes? Are they then looking at someone like that as funny rather than as scary? Are you making them comfortable?
Making light of it? Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got to be really careful. So for me, whenever I do approach a subject like that, I'm trying to give people information at the same time. So I want them in the moment to be laughing and enjoying it. But then ideally later on, maybe the next day, I might be sitting with some mates and then go, "Do you hear about this?" And they won't necessarily realize that I'm the one who's given them that. But that's the ideal for me when I do a subject like that. So a bit of education, and there's a role of responsibility, I think, to a degree, in subjects like that. And a lot of performers just want to stay well away from it, and that's entirely fair enough. Yeah.
I get why they would say that, but you know, like if you've got like a really like sensitive subject, you know, I don't know, like I kind of like racism or, you know, homophobia or something. Like if you turn it into a joke, you like in some ways you can like strip away its power as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a really powerful tool that only comedians can do. The way they can like they can make something seem patently ridiculous in a way that scientists couldn't. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's definitely, you know, people say, "Oh, too soon," and there's a bit of that at play. You know, Hitler is a punchline in a lot of jokes these days, and during the war, he was. You know, there's all those songs that came out of the war. Hitler's only got one ball, and all that. You know, so historically, culturally, comedy has played vital roles in times like that of keeping people's spirits up. Obviously, you know, the stage that I'm talking about is nowhere near as influential as something like that. But there is a line, and ultimately, I think it comes down to the person receiving it. As with many forms of communication, if the person listening is you know, dare I say, is a racist, and they hear you talking about racism in a certain way, they're going to take something away from that that's different to someone who is completely anti-racism. They'll see a lampooning of racism, whereas this person will see, you know, I get this guy. You know, it's
yeah, it's kind of like
definitely
you're being held like responsible for like you're placing the idea in their head, but you're not like responsible for how it grows.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, anyone who's ever written a post on a forum or posted something on Facebook and someone's just gotten the complete wrong end of the stick, you know, they've not understood what you've meant or what you've tried to say and gone off on one and gotten really angry about it, or the opposite, or they've agreed with you and they're like, yeah man, you're speaking the truth. I'm like, wait, I wasn't saying that. You can't be responsible for the interpretation. Someone like me, I'm hyper aware of it, so I can get a bit Canadian, a little bit British sometimes. If I say something,
what does that mean?
Well, you'll find out. If I say something particularly dark or offbeat or about us, you know, make light of something or offend somebody or something like that, I'll almost always apologize about it afterwards. I'm like, I don't really mean that. You know, that's a joke. You know, we do those things. We're known for that. These comedian folk. I don't know. That's maybe a little bit of a bugbear that I have. So I'm not like hypersensitive. I'm not like trying to never offend anyone ever. There's plenty of people in the world who deserve to be offended. But you know,
no, I think your intention is really all you can be like, you know, responsible for. Really.
Yeah, very true, very true. Yeah, very, very true.
So another good one for you. I've always noticed that kind of link between like comedians and like depression and misery, and usually the ones who are like the most depressed, in my opinion, or the ones suffer the most, are the funniest material, and that's not a coincidence.
No, but yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, the comedian's curse.
Oh, it's got a name. It's got a name. I didn't realize.
Well, I don't know if that's what it's called. That's what I've always called it, and I don't know if I've picked that up from somewhere or whether I've come up with it. But yeah, it's definitely a thing. There's a comedian out of Christchurch, guy called Nathan Headley. Shout out to him. So that's about 4 hours drive north from where we are now. He all of his material is done on that. All of it is done on his personal experiences of depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts and attempts, things like that. And that shit's really important to listen to. And that's really a deeply personal thing that he's doing, but he's also doing it in a way that makes people laugh and entertains them. So mad respect for that. Obviously, you know, you've got big names like Robin Williams, of course, people who you'd never think had a moment of sadness in their entire life, because they're just so out there all the time.
Yeah, I don't know to talk. Obviously, it's not measured, but I think if they were honest with themselves, the vast majority of comedians would be.
I'd hesitate to say that, but I also wouldn't disagree. Having known a few, and you know, personally, I think mental health's an important issue. I'll raise my hand and say I've got many issues, and had many fights.
Don't we all, my friend?
Like that. So I guess the question almost boils down to: does comedy attract people with those tendencies, or is it the other way around? You know, like when you give your joy out, does that then leave you with not as much? Which one is it? It's kind of potentially a bit of both, but I think it's more that it's attracting people with those kind of tendencies.
I think that they're drawing from that deep well, and they have been for a long time, and it's kind of like well, I suppose with, sharing a little bit with my own like mental health experiences, by sort of like seeing the comedy in the misery, so it's just a really good way of coping with it. So I think maybe it starts off as a way of self-coping, and then think this shit's funny. I should say this to other people too. And then obviously, because most people have mental health issues as well, it's so easy to connect to. It's just so human. I find it, for me, it's like one of my favorite types of comedy, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, if anyone ever asks me, and get asked a fair amount, why did you do it? What makes you want to do this? And my answer is always that it's cheaper than therapy. And that's a funny answer, but it's also kind of true. Yeah. It is cheaper than therapy, and sometimes you even get paid for it. So bonus.
That's a dream, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, I've asked you all the serious questions, so you can tell me about your most traumatic comedian experience, if you like.
My most traumatic comedian experience. Well, I've had there's different ways to look at that. I was headlining a show once. I can't get into too many specifics about it for obvious reasons, but I was headlining a show, and I always try and watch all the other performers. A lot of acts don't. I think it's important, and it's difficult. I know when you've been doing it for years and you've seen these same people performing every month or every week, even for ages, and you know all their material. But it's important to watch them anyway, because more than once I've seen a headliner come in and start talking about very similar things to people earlier in the night, and the crowd's like, "That guy was talking about that."
Oh, yeah.
You're not funny. So it's part of the reason why I do it. And the other part is so I can have a genuine conversation. When they ask me if I liked it, I can give them a genuine answer. I'm not just like, "Oh yeah, it was great," and I wasn't actually paying attention. And then I can give them real feedback, like, "Dude, you're getting better. Great." And there was one act who was telling a story, and it started off kind of okay, and then it got a little bit gross, and then it got really messed up, as like, and it was being presented like it was sexy, and it was like no one had laughed at all in a while, and I had to get up and leave, and I was in the front row, which made it quite difficult. But I was like, no, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And I've never done that before or since, but I couldn't. Oh no! I went out the back, and someone was like, "Are you all right?" I looked like I'd had some kind of traumatic experience. Apparently, I was all pale and I wasn't happy. That's probably the worst thing I've ever experienced in relation to comedy. My worst personal experience on a stage, probably a coin toss between like the roast battle wasn't too bad, because I felt like I did okay. It's just the format didn't agree with me, and I felt like I'd been a dancing monkey, and I didn't like that feeling. So I'll never go back to that. But probably I went out and did a gig over in Queenstown. I was emceeing there. Overall, the gig was fantastic. The crowd was very responsive. It was packed, standing room at the back, crammed full of people. But it's just the way that they were treating the MC's role. So when I was on the stage between acts, that's when they could get up and get drinks and have chats amongst themselves. So I was ending up spending my entire night like a school teacher, trying to get the crowd back focused for the next performer. But they just didn't give a shit about what I said. It was not necessarily that what I was saying I wasn't pleased with, but it was they just weren't they weren't listening or engaging with me, which was making particularly my style even harder, because I just had nothing to go off. I had no reaction to tell me
seems like you kind of like feed off them a bit, don't you? Like how
yeah. Like when I say something, you know, you can often have a fork in direction, and the response of the audience normally dictates which one I'll go down. I'll try and give them more of what they'll enjoy.
Yeah.
So that was really hard. They just treated me like an opportunity to go to the bar. And you know what? Bar sales are really important at gigs. They're one of the reasons that gigs happen. So it's very difficult to be overly grumpy about it. And now I know that that's what it's like there as an MC. Next time I go, I'll be prepared for it. But I wasn't in that moment. The lineup was fantastic, and they gave a lot of respect to the performers, and that was good to see. I've heard it said before that, you know, the best MC is the guy who nobody thinks is the funniest of the night. You know, you're more of a facilitator. You're not there to overshadow any of the acts. That's fine. That's why I do headlining and other gigs as well. You know, yeah, that was probably the worst experience I've had overall. But it was interesting because the gig as a whole went really, really well. And the whole crowd at the end, they were loving it. They were very, very positive about the thing as a whole. And I think I was probably the only person of the whole night who had a less than fantastic experience. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to look past their own, like, you know, their perceptions sometimes. Clearly it was amazing, but obviously, like from your point of view, it would have looked like a disaster. But you know, even when you like self-criticize as well, it's never usually as bad as you're seeing it. Like you'll always focus on that tiny little minutiae of a mistake, and you'll miss the overarching whole thing, which is usually fine. It's the same with like if I'm singing a song and I'll get one word wrong. That's all I see. Not the fact that everyone's like, yeah, songs are good. But that's it.
Well, I was going to say you're lucky. We're lucky in the way that when a comedian fucks up, when we say the wrong thing, or if we say something that falls flat, we've always got an out. We can always say, wow, I'm never going to say that again, or that didn't go so well. Anything like that. You see it happen all the time. It's probably the most common joke that comedians say when they recognize something that they've just said hasn't gone down well. You can't do that when you're singing. You can't go, oh, sorry, looked up the lyrics, and you know, you don't get that out. So yeah, we're a bit lucky on that front. You have just reminded me of something else actually as well, and a not so great experience. My son was in hospital, not very well, so we'd been locked up by the doctor. And I was due to do this gig. The organizer was out of town. The MC who usually runs the gig was out of town. So I was like the third stand-in to take over the whole thing and run it, and there was nobody else to fall back on. Like if I didn't go, this show wasn't going to happen. So I kind of left it to the last minute, made sure everything was as good as it could be, and ducked out for an hour with the intention of coming back. And that was a tough gig. Again, probably just from my experience, my own perspective. But I was not in the mindset to be on a stage trying to make people laugh. So that kind of comes back to what I was saying before about that nervousness coming from I need to feel like I'm in the right headspace, which isn't always able to happen on command. You know, there's often other things going on.
Well, you're a person.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to break this to you now.
You're not a person on a gong show.
No, you are not.
No, you are not.
Hey man, I'm just conscious of your time. I'm going to stop recording now, but we can carry on having a chat. But I just want to thank you for answering all my questions, man. It's been really fun.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Thanks, man. And do you have any stuff you want us to like link to, or anything you want to mention? Like,
I mean, yeah, locally, Dunedin Comedy. That's on Facebook. They collate everything that's going on in the entire region, really. If you're ever traveling through New Zealand, there's comedy happening just about anywhere. I mean, yeah, up in the North Island, there's heaps. You'll be bumping into it everywhere you go. Down in the south, there's plenty going on in Christchurch. There's some great promoters up there. And if you find yourself in Dunedin, look us up. I'm sure there'll be a gig on while you're in town. Back there in the UK, up in Manchester Comedy Sports. As I said, with a Z.
I'll try and link them in if they got a Facebook or something.
Yeah, they do. They do regular shows. They move. I'm not sure where they're based at the moment, but their shows are improvised comedy battle games. So there's two teams, red team and blue team, and they go head to head in different formats and different games. It's 100% improvised, all off audience suggestions. It's always kid friendly as well. They also, some of the people are involved in improvised murder mysteries that go on in Manchester, where there'll be a theme for the night, might be murder in the Alpine Lodge or something like that. And
murder scandal.
Yes, the characters are based on audience suggestions. They draw out of a hat, and one of them is the murderer, and then they play it out through scenes, and you've got to try and figure out who the murderer is. You might win a prize. Right. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot going on.
I will link them in.
Yeah, look for it. Support comedy wherever it is. Often the smaller stuff needs your love as well, and you're going to enjoy it just as much as the people who are on TV, possibly even more because of the intimate settings. And just get out there. If you're thinking of doing it yourself, do it. Get involved, get watching.
Thank you very much.